Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. Kevin, what's going on, buddy?
Hello, Brian. Good evening. How are you?
I am well.
I was just looking at myself over here on the video, and I'm looking a little bit like Mr. Rogers. So what do you think about that?
Like Mr. Rogers with that sweater on? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Well, it's not a button-down sweater, so it's not really a Mr. Rogers sweater. I think he was pretty much always in the button-down category because he walked in and put it on, right?
Shows you the last time I watched Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, I was
He's
catching
a
up
good
on.
man, though. Do you ever see him interviewed like on Letterman or anything?
I don't specifically recall.
He was just a straight up dude all the time, and that character that he played on the show,
Right.
was him in real life all the time.
No kidding.
That was him. That was exactly him. He was one of the most pure souls that you could ever imagine. He was just a good guy. And,
Yeah.
when people interviewed they thought it was an act, and so
Right.
when he wasn't different, they didn't quite know how to take him. That's what I recall.
Interesting, because have you seen or heard the rumor that's floated around about him for years that he was a special forces soldier, and I've seen it in different referencing different services and so on, and had X number of confirmed kills and things like that. You ever see that floating around?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
What do you think, Casey? Are you a Mr. Rogers fan? I know you got kids, so.
Yeah, we got when I grew up, I had just a couple stations that we got and on our TV, and he was one of them. So I definitely kind of came up seeing him at times, and I didn't know any of those things that you're mentioning until maybe 2 years ago, which is interesting that he had a couple things. I think he had helped introduce, for example, having he shared what he put his feet in a swimming pool with a black guy for the first time on national TV. That was kind of like a groundbreaking type of anti-racism statement that people are people kind of thing. So I remember seeing that, and also hearing about the special forces thing. So definitely came to life late before I knew any of those things.
Is that true?
I don't know.
The special forces
I don't know
thing?
if that's ever been verified. I'm not sure. Do you know?
I'm not sure, but I did hear the same thing.
Huh. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah.
So that's got to be out there somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah. So I thought you were going to go somewhere totally different when you said looking at the screen here.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about the fact that you look like a hippie.
Hippie.
Yeah, with the two of us on here, you look like a damn hippie. You need a haircut.
I gotcha. Well, it's a burden that I have to carry.
Yeah.
And
No, if I could grow hair like that, I'd have a ponytail down to my ass.
you
You
would.
know, I
Actually.
would. I know I
You
would. Yep. All right.
You wanna tell our guests about our online guest with us tonight?
Absolutely.
Do it.
So we have the good fortune to have Mr. Casey Knowles with us tonight, and he's a young man in this circle, anyways. Just over that 50 mark by a couple of years, and he's a husband, a father to 4 children, and is in the mortgage business. He actually relocated from California to Colorado, I believe, and started over. And he started over a bunch of different times doing a lot of different things. And that's one of the things that we're going to dive into and find out more about. But he certainly got an interesting story about when he relocated to Colorado and just started off cold, and how he was able to knock it out of the park in a very short time. So Casey, welcome. And we look forward to hearing more about this and the things that you've accomplished in your life and what you can share with folks to help them out.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I really do. You guys are awesome. So this is going to be fun.
I'm going to start off with this. It was something I was watching on a video that I watched of yours, talking about popping into a city and starting with no contacts, no information about the markets or anything with respect to your job, and just trying to make a go of it. And then there was some comment, it might have been from you, but it might have been from somebody else that was either commentating or with you about the American dream and still getting it done. Can you comment on that based on the world that you've lived in, based on the fact that you've started over apparently a number of different times? Is it still the land of opportunity in your view?
100%. I think it's just, it's a decision, and if you watch the show, for example, a lot of times I mention, as far as the word opportunity is, you can, in the United States, you can go anywhere. You can, if you're looking for it, if you're trying to find it, you can walk down the street and you can look at a building or inside the building or a person, or you could go through the day and not recognize anything really, or you could go through the day actually searching for opportunities, and you can find them. And one of the, I think, scientific things that I lean on sometimes is called your reticular activator. And it's the thing that if you go and buy a red Ford truck and you're driving a red Ford truck and you're leaving the lot, and as you're driving, you're like, my goodness, everybody's got a red Ford truck. And your brain doesn't recognize the significance of it, because there's millions of pieces of information that go into your head, or that's available for you to take in, and your brain can't physically take in a million things. So your brain tells you, hey, look, this is important. Don't step in front of a car, you're going to get killed. Don't, these are the pieces of information that you need to have. But when you make a decision to do something, and you tell your brain, look, like in my profession, hey, I have to get a loan a day to do what I got to do. I have to, that's what I'm going to do. When you make a decision to do that, then it's like buying that red truck. Your brain now says this is an important piece of information. So when you walk into a store, or you have a drink with somebody at a bar, or whatever you do throughout your day, when opportunities come up, your brain's like, oh, there's a red truck. There's a red truck. And then you'll actually find out that there's opportunity everywhere. It's just that if you're not looking for them, you may not see them, because your brain isn't triggered to receive that information.
There's a couple things about what you said that I just absolutely loved. And you're right. If, your brain will answer the questions that you ask of it. And so, and Brian and I talk about the one key word that you said at the beginning is it's a decision. And once you make a decision to look for those opportunities, and oh, by the way, in my vernacular, what is a decision? A decision means there is no other option. So you are now committed to this direction, to this decision, to whatever it is that you're headed toward. And, all the world starts to conspire to help you. But it's a very easy thing to do in today's day and age, is to be sucked in by the victim mentality that is just pumped at us through the various sources of media that we can consume if we choose to. And you're a victim, you're owed, it's not your fault. All of these things that have happened to you, you need to be paid back, you need to be taken care of, you need to be handed stuff. It's an awful state of mind, in my view. Bryant would agree with me. We're aligned on that. Yeah. And it's a decision. And I'm with you, Brian and I both. I know we are 100% aligned. This remains the incredible land of opportunity, and thank you for saying that.
Yeah, you're saying you guys don't like the victim mentality. I love it. It's like all these people are off the playing field. It just opens it up for everybody else that chooses to do stuff. That's how I see it.
Yeah, that's certainly another perspective. That's pretty cool. You're right.
I go in a Facebook group and everyone's bashing each other about stuff, and everything's so hard. They're occupied, and it just means that I can go out on the field and play. So I love it.
I like that.
I'm going to use that from now on.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's
go ahead.
it.
You go over there and play victim. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's what I always say. They're outside fighting, and I'm inside, in the bar with the girls. So.
Getting it done.
Nice. So you mentioned the show. Tell us a little bit more about the show, because you kind of profiled what you did in this time when you hit the ground in Colorado and started from scratch. So tell us about that, the name of the show and so on.
Yeah, really quick. I moved from California to Colorado, and I thought I was going to retire. And so I kind of burned my phone. And even though I've been doing loans for about 17, 18 years, I didn't want to keep doing them at the time. So I started welding and building drag cars and doing some cool stuff. And then I had to get back into it. And so starting over as a middle-aged person in a new town, it wasn't the same as it was 20 years ago when, handshakes mattered and things like that. I mean, they still do, but to get back into it, it was difficult. I was failing. And after a few months of trying really hard, I always thought I could just get back into it and win. And after a few months, nothing was really happening. And so I started working with this guy named Nick Carpenter, and he kind of showed me a way to get some relationships going by doing some things like attraction type marketing, which I was always the go get the business. And he kind of showed me a way of kind of setting some traps. And so by doing that in my first year, I was ranked number 4 as a broker in the state of Colorado in my first 12 months, fiscal 12 months doing that, which was fantastic. It was really good. And then we decided to do it again on camera because we were trying to recruit. And so it was put to the test, like, hey, look, we paid for a camera crew. I moved away from my house here about 3 hours to Colorado Springs. I rented a house, and again, a camera crew showed up every day, and we just filmed if I could do it again in a 90-day period to get on that pace again, just to see if we were full of it or not. Like, can you actually do this again? And we repeated it. And at the end of the 3 months, we did really well. I was on pace to be in the top 1% in the United States again. And luckily it worked out because I honestly went all in on it and burned a lot of relationships to test it. So I'm glad it worked. I mean, it would have worked no matter what, because I wouldn't have come home, but I'm glad it worked out in the time frame it did.
When you say burned a lot of relationships, what did you mean by that?
Yeah. To get into numbers, I was a broker.
Yep.
And I was wanting to go direct, which meant work for a bank.
Okay.
I had loan officers that during my first year, I originated $50 million. I had a team of people that I helped bring on. So we did 100 million. And when I decided to do this challenge, the people that worked for me, they worked out of their house. They were focusing on refinances. I had told them, look, we're leaving the refinance world. You need to learn how to go out and hunt and get business from realtors through relationships. They didn't see that route being one that they wanted to go on because they were pretty happy doing 3 or 4 loans a month, sitting in their house doing refinances. I left that, and that was about $750,000 of income that I walked away from that year to go do the show. Also, the realtors I worked with in Northern Colorado saw that I went public to leave to develop relationships somewhere else. And I was very public about, I'm going to start doing business here. I'm not in Northern Colorado anymore. And so I lost all those relationships as well. So I went from 0 to hero to absolutely, I didn't have a single employee left when I had one guy that was right out of the Army that was helping me. That was an experience. So I went from pretty much a full company to 0. When I made the decision. And so everything was on the line for me.
Okay.
And again, I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah,
Of course. Talk about putting some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, it was risky.
Yeah. Big risk and big payoff. And are you still doing it, or have you modified a little bit, or have you decided to take a step back and rest a minute, or what?
No, yeah. So like it was over at the end of October, and
Right.
Since October I've started to recruit again, and I have staff again, and we're back in business, and we're back up we're above where that's what's interesting is I kind of lost everybody, but I've since attracted the people because I went public with what I was wanting to do and my personality and my drive. And so I've attracted people that actually I get along with great. And so we have more numbers than we did before. We're pacing really fast, and things are past what I left. So with the group that loves me and that I love. So that's probably the biggest win.
It's good stuff. I like it. And are you doing this kind of work because you love it? Are you doing it because of the challenge? Are you doing it because of, you need the money? I mean, what is the
Yeah.
wisdom there? Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a tough question for me.
Okay.
So, I get this question a lot, and this is a tough one. I've had different people try to bring out the why, and what's your why? And they actually, I was at a speaking gig one time, and somebody had asked me my why, and I said, I don't know that I really have a why. I kind of feel like a cheetah, like game runs, and I could just kind of do what cheetahs do. I get up at 3, 4 in the morning and I work, and I'm kind of wired to, but um, my dad, the best answer I could give you is I grew up working with my dad. He was the hardest working guy I've ever known. He valued that. I was a hardworking kid, and I think he was pretty proud of me as a working individual. And since that was a highly valued thing in our family, I still value it. I still value work, in and of itself. So
Yeah.
I don't care about having money. I definitely like to earn money. I like to hit new achievements, but just having it in and of itself, I don't know what I have in the bank right now. I have to ask my wife. But I like to work. I like to work, period.
That's how you identify. And that's a good reason. It's as good as any.
Yeah,
So.
and that certainly makes sense. You shared with us a little bit before we started recording about you growing up and so on, and that yeah, that makes good sense. That those are values that were instilled in you early on, and not ones you want to get rid of. So good stuff. So here's a question for you: What with the experiences that you've had in these successful endeavors, are there any key elements or principles, practices that you use that you could say, these are the things, these are the key ingredients in my process, no matter what I'm doing, that help me to be successful, that you could share with others?
Sure. When I went to Colorado Springs, and this is something that when I've started over in the past, what I used to do was I would repair somebody's credit to get them as a buyer, and then I would give them to a real estate agent. And my thinking was, hey, if I give them a buyer, then they'll owe me one. They'll give me one back. It was a mechanical way of me giving first, but it was calculated, and it was thought out that I'm going to do this to get something back, and it worked really well because I gave first and they gave me something back. But what I realized as I got older was there's a fast way to do things, and then in my mind there was a slower way to do things, and the slower way to do things was to do things the right way. I always grew up with the idea that if you do it the right way, it will take time, but it will be better. If you don't cheat, if you don't take shortcuts, if you do the right thing, the older people, from the way I could understand it, they're like, look, you want to do the right thing. It's going to take you longer, but ultimately you'll be in the right spot. And ultimately it'll be faster to get there because you're not trying to take shortcuts that end up nowhere. What I figured out was doing the right thing actually is even faster than cheating. It's faster than a shortcut. And most people, I've never really met anybody that understands this the way that I think I do. When I went to Colorado Springs, I had 90 days to originate loans, to get loans. I could have bought leads and try to convert leads to hit a number, which after 90 days, there wouldn't be any leads left, right? I would convert those, create business, and then it's dead, it's done. But my plan was, I'm going to go there. I have 90 days to see if I can get some loans. In the first 30 days, I don't have a database, so I need to meet people. And I did that predominantly online on Facebook, make friends and stuff. And then my next tactic was, quote unquote tactic, was I'm going to start giving to them as much as I can. And then in month 3, I'm going to see how it worked out. I'm going to see if I can give so much that it overflows and they just start to give back to me. The law of reciprocity, or just get. And so I didn't have to hit my number. I was trying to do $2 million in the 90 days in the 3rd month, which would be about $30,000 of income in that month for a loan officer, was our initial goal. And I didn't go, okay, to hit 2 million, I need to do these things to get something, and that'll add up to 2 million. I had zero plans of calculating out, reverse engineering $2 million. I just said, I'm going to go meet enough people that I have a database, and then I'm going to try to find my tribe, let them kind of filter through, and then I'm going to pour everything I can into their business. And I'm just going to hope and pray that I give so much value that they just want to give me something back, was my plan. And even deeper than that, I didn't really care if they gave me anything back, because now that I'm old enough to know that if I truly give everything I want to give, I don't really care if I get anything back. What's funny is, in that 90 days, in that 3rd month, I did about $3.5 million instead of 2, which qualifies me for the Scotsman's Guide, which is like pretty much the who's who Bible of mortgages. Puts me like in the top 20% or 1%, and then it would put me on pace to make $600,000 a year as a loan originator, which is probably 6 times or more what a decent originator does.
Okay.
But I didn't do that with anything other than trying to get side by side with them in their office and help them call their database and help them fix some of their marketing and help them do stuff. It was me back at my family ranch with a shovel, just helping them dig a hole side by side.
Yeah.
And what happened was I met a couple people that were my avatar, right? People that I got along with really well. And they didn't necessarily give me everything they had, but they had all their friends kind of say, hey, look, this guy Casey's a great guy. You'd love him. Like, he's a partner like other people aren't. You should like throw him a deal because he's a great loan officer. They didn't even know that I'd never even done a loan for them. But they assumed, since I was helping them so much, that I must be great at what I did, because I was even great at stuff I didn't do. And so to answer your question, going back to truly giving first is not only better, but it's actually faster because I did it in 90 days. It's unheard of. Like, this is the type of business some people don't do an entire year. I mean, especially not their first year. And I didn't do anything other than just gear up to I'd go there for an hour appointment and I would stay 90 minutes. I'm like, hey, let's get this done while we're here. While we got that done, let's call one more person. And nobody ever sits down and it really, really wants to help the other person. Because if somebody does that to you, say, for example, you guys are moving out of your house, right? And I'm walking down the street and you're walking down the stairs from your apartment and you're alone and you have to move out by 6 o'clock that night. And I'm some stranger. And you're like, hey man, I hate to bug you, but I got one couch. Like, is there any way you can just help me take one couch down the stairs? I know you're a stranger, but just...
I've done this very thing. That's why I can relate to this story. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
And I'm like, shoot, yeah, I'll help you move the couch. No big deal. So I run up the stairs, and when I go to help you move the couch, I notice you got 4 or 5 other big pieces of furniture. So I take this couch downstairs, and I'm like, hey man, why don't you I saw you got a bunch of crap up there. Let me just help you with 2-3 things. It's not a big deal. I got time. And you want the help, but you don't really want to ask because you could do it yourself. Right. But I force myself on you. I'm like, look, don't worry about it. Let me just help you. It'll take us 2 minutes. So I go up and I help you. Now you're feeling like, man, this relationship is not weighted right anymore. Like, I should buy you some beer. I should order pizza. Like I should do something, because if you're a decent human being, that pressure that the relationship is not square anymore starts to weigh on you. Like, you feel, it's like when you go to dinner and they give you a couple of free drinks, you give them more than the tip would have been, because you're like, they gave first.
Yeah.
And by the time you help with that furniture, they're going to be like, it doesn't feel good to them anymore, because they need to help you back. And that is like my secret to going far fast, is just, I just try to help until that relationship is so lopsided that you go home and they're thinking of ways to help you.
Yeah, and at the same time, and what I'm hearing you say is you'd be completely fine not getting anything in return because you aren't doing it with the expectation you're going to get something back. Now, from a strategy perspective, you are, um, and at the same time, as a person, that giving nature is just something that you do. So that's a big thing that jumped out for me, along with something that you just said briefly about adding value. Those are the people that people are going to associate with when you're adding value to somebody's life, to their business, anywhere. That's when they're going to be drawn to you and want to be around you. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, if you are selective in who you work with, then it's not hard to bring together your strategy and you wanting to help. Because if I love you and I'm like, I would help you on Sunday, whether never saw you again ever, and I just would help you pack up because you're moving to Switzerland. Like, if you care about, and I that's how I am with the realtors I work with. I only work with people that I like, and then at that point, if I stay 10 hours and help and I get nothing out of it, it doesn't matter. We're just friends. That's when the strategy and the relationship part, nobody's going to come to me and say, oh, it's a strategy for you. Well, it's just because you don't feel how I feel.
Right.
Yeah, this is good stuff. Give first. For our listening audience, they don't know that we had a little bit of conversation before we came on the air where you were talking about how you've gotten older. People would drop nuggets of really high quality information into your life, usually mostly from your parents or other key adults in your life, that would tell you things that, you'd listen to them and you'd hear them. But boy, when you get older, you realize how much wisdom there was in that. And that's what you're doing right now. And then the thing, and Bryant said it too, that I loved that you said was, I'm not just going to give, and I'm going to give, and I'm not even going to worry about it. It's going to come back to me. But if
Right.
it doesn't, I don't care. I'm fine. I've given, I've done my part. I feel like I've, served this relationship the way it needed to be served. I've done what I was supposed to do here. And it all comes back to you anyway. It really does. And
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right about the whole older people that you've been around and things that they've said in times back. Because I can remember myself doing it. I was never rude about it, but I can remember myself, hearing something that someone said and thinking, geezer.
Yeah.
And and then later, you hear those same words and that person's face flashes in front of you, and you're like, well, turns out he knew what he was talking about. Yeah. So and I do it now with my younger associates, friends and family and so on, and I'll often caveat it. I've been in your shoes, and I have had the same reaction that I'm seeing in your eyes right now. So you might not realize what I'm saying is fact right now. There will come a time, and that sometimes that's enough to get them to stand back and think, oh well, maybe I should listen to this a little bit more. And then sometimes not. They're just hard and fast. Nope, going to do it my way. We're the society of we have the opportunity to learn from the experiences of others, but no, we got to touch that damn stove ourselves. That stove's hot, don't touch it. Yeah, it happens. That's just I think that's the way some people are wired. I think that we might even be wired that way naturally, and we have to fight it and train ourselves to do it differently.
Yeah, I thought about this about a week ago. Maybe, I'm not going to try to get through history here, but at one point, one of our great grandfathers or whatever, discovers electricity, and then they learn how to weld with it. And then the next generation, they have, microchips, and then pretty soon it's artificial intelligence. Like, every generation, which is crazy to me, feeds off the last generation's technology advancement. And yet, humans, depending on what you believe, could be here a couple thousand years, 2.5 million years, depending on what school you're coming from. but we're still telling our kids, don't lie and don't cheat and wipe the pee off the seat whenever you leave, and take care of yourself and hang up the towel when you're done. It's not somebody else's job, and these things that are every bit as important as welding two pieces of metal together, because we all have to interact with each other and advance as humans or society, or be kind and all these things. And every generation has to relearn those damn things, which are the most basic things that can help you so much. So, I think my grandfather was telling my dad stuff, and my dad had to tell me the same things, and I didn't figure it out until I was 30. He told me when I was damn 14 years old. Should have picked up on that. I didn't need another 36 years to figure that out.
So several things you talked about doing, in your loan business. I didn't know I was going here, but I'm going to go here. There's some morality that's involved with this, in terms of morality is not the right. There's a moral code that helps you make decisions. And so I just wanted to ask you, where do you get your moral code from? When it comes to making decisions and treating people right. And you mentioned the word love at one point. That's not a word you hear people talking about in a professional sense very often. So there's some depth there that I'd like to hear more about.
Yeah.
It's like, damn it, Kevin, you ask hard
I'm
questions.
sorry.
No, I know the morality thing. You have your ethics and morality, right? They're kind of a couple different things.
Yeah, you're right.
Ethically, I think, I think as I've gotten a couple things. One is I've gotten better. I've gotten busier, and as I've gotten busier, my mindset is less of a scarcity mindset, because I'm not starving to eat. So I think it may not be entirely fair compared to a brand new person who's starving. For example, I have a loan officer that works for me, and he needs to close a loan to pay his bills. And he has to operate in a position of getting overly involved in his transactions. And that's not the best way to operate when you're in business. It's, whatever position you're in, it's better to come across as a leader and to have boundaries, to set boundaries with people, that they don't call you at 11 at night, and things like that. And when you only have one deal on the table, it's really hard to be where I'm at, where I can say, look, I'm going to spend most of my time putting business into the hopper. The people that are good people to work with, I'll continue to work with. The people that aren't good, that I don't get along with well, that push back on me and they want to leave, they can leave, because I don't want them to replicate. I don't want more of their referrals. I want referrals from people that I love, that I care about. So I have a little bit of an advantage there, because I work hard and I've been able to have surplus. And I think that working hard can help get you past the beginning stages of trying to survive. But at the end of the day, regardless if you work hard or don't work hard, you can't change pay stubs, and you can't do things that are wrong, because that will get you nowhere fast, and even worse.
Right.
So I never saw my dad lie, ever. I'm sure he did, but I never saw it. And our house my mom was pretty conservative Christian at our house, and so things were very cut and dry. I was probably the first one to go out and drink too much and come home smelling like cigarettes and stuff like that when I was a kid. But I think I've kind of come back somewhat to some of their conservative type of values, I guess.
Yeah.
Partly.
Yeah. Being from California. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
You asked. This is ad lib, so you get what you get.
You bet. Absolutely. This is great. And this next thing that I wanted to ask you about, just because it's on my mind, I've been doing some. I'm a huge John Wooden fan. Huge, and being from California, and where he spent all of his time. But there's a parallel, and then a question. The parallel is you're in a point now where you don't have to worry about, I got one deal on the table, I got to close it, or I can't pay my bills. But everybody starts out there, and you have to work your way through that to get to the point And a lot of people think about John Wooden, and you think, how does anybody in the NCAA win 7 national championships in a row? How does anybody win 10 national championships in 12 years? But what they don't see is he laid the groundwork in the early years. I mean, he coached for 15 years before. I mean, they were doing well, but they weren't killing it, and like they became. And so he laid the groundwork, and then once you have that system in place, it just sort of repeats itself. And the parallel is with you. You know, you learned all this stuff in your early days about how to win work and do mortgages, so that when you get to the point where you're at now, because you have such a depth of knowledge and experience, it's easy to put systems in place built upon the foundation of your past that are much more effective in the long term. So I'm sorry, from that point forward, not in the long term.
Systems.
Yeah. Putting in the right systems.
No doubt. The systems are important.
Yeah, in just as much as doing it right the first time. And I think that's, in this job, if I do something incomplete in the beginning of the process, it can, 1 hour of preparation, just as you would expect, could turn into 20 hours of mayhem afterwards with a bad reputation. And that is something that took me, and this is interesting. When I grew up, I love to weld. And so when I grew up welding on the ranch, we welded like oil well pipe and stuff, and we'd shove a bolt in there and put a weld on it, and it was really nasty and dirty and didn't look good. And then I went to work building fire trucks, and there I did a lot of better welding, because they were for vehicles. And then ultimately I started building drag cars, and where I TIG welded, and everything had to be absolutely insanely beautiful, like what a machine couldn't do. And there are levels to mastery that, if I were to tell you go clean a gun, it's not the same as if you're in the Army and your drill sergeant has you, white glove clean a gun. It's completely different. And there's levels to things that you can do that make it an entirely different thing. And as I've gotten better, I've become more of the TIG welder, welding drag cars, than I was the ranch welder, welding oil well pipe. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference because when I do things correctly up front, I don't have to spend 5 or 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours apologizing or trying to fix things. And I think that was probably one of my biggest lessons being younger. I thought I could get something done and get it done and get it behind me. And that was a mistake. That cost me years and years of learning that the work up front is the best paying work.
And there's the wisdom of the ages right there.
Yes. Amen to that.
That's it.
I'm going to take this totally off track here because you said something that is, you've mentioned it a couple times and I'm intrigued by it. Welding is something I've always been fascinated with. Where does a guy that has maybe welded a couple things his entire life, where does he go to start and learn how to weld?
It depends what kind of welding you want to do. I think TIG welding for me is, you can start off with, people don't stick weld that much anymore. They do outside, stick welding, it's got the rod in there and it creates its own shielding gas. Essentially, it kind of explodes as it goes. So it cleans the air around it. So you can do it around, they do it around the pipe fitters and pipe welders and stuff outside. That's cool. It's actually, you have to have somewhat of a talent because it's kind of an explosion going on the whole time. It's not super clean. And the rod shortens as you weld. So not only do you have to follow the weld, but you have to get closer and closer to the weld as you weld. And so it takes a little bit of skill. Beyond that, you could use a gun, MIG. And that's pretty easy because all you have to worry about then is just the weld. The wire comes out on its own, so you don't have to make any adjustments. Beyond that, TIG welding school, you have wire in one hand and you have heat in the other hand, and then you got a gas pedal adjusting the temperature, the electricity. So you have to mess with your pedal while you're feeding a rod with one hand and while you're moving the heat with another hand, and it's super, super crazy complicated. and that's really fun. That's like, you can get in your garage, you can mess around with that, and that's a good time. But
that does sound fun.
It is fun. It's really fun. And anybody that doesn't think it's fun they're not smart enough to realize that it's a lot of fun. So, But to pick up a wire welder is pretty cheap. You can probably get one for $300 or $400 and watch a YouTube video, go to a scrap yard and pick up some scrap metal. And again, the trick is that everyone will miss in the garage is you got to clean everything. So clean your metal real good, get the rust off. And that's the preparation part, right? And so prep all those things and get a table you can rest on and rest your hands so you have control, and just start laying it down and practicing. But it's the greatest thing ever. Everybody should be able to weld.
I like it.
Man, yeah, I can tell. We're going to have a welding artist here.
Yeah,
all kind
of right. Just as soon as I finish with the chainsaw carving.
Okay. Chainsaws are cool too. Are you a steel guy or a husky guy? This might end here.
There's only one right answer on this one. I have right.
I have recently become a steel guy.
Oh, you can stop. There you go.
For the longest time, I was a home light guy. Right, I had an old I still have it, 60s or 70s blue home light chainsaw, and that thing is the beast. Yeah, well,
that thing weigh?
That's why I became a steel chainsaw owner. We had a bad storm that came through here several months ago, and we lost a bunch of trees. And I was helping my neighbor cut some trees down off of his driveway, and I'm using my antique ass boat anchor of a chainsaw, and I mean the thing cuts like crazy, but it weighs a ton. And I put it down, and he was using his tractor to move some stuff, and he's like, "Hey, will you go move my chainsaw out of the way?" I picked that chainsaw up. I thought I was going to throw it in the air because, I'm used to picking mine up, right? And I picked that thing up, and I was like, "Woo!" I was like, "What in the hell?" So I went chainsaw shopping shortly thereafter, and now I have several steel chainsaws.
Yeah, I love them. Steel are awesome.
Yeah,
I learned something about you.
Yeah, I even have a weed eater. It's like the professional steel weed eater. It'll take your foot off. I just, my yard's not that big, but I walk around the neighborhood and I let everybody see it because it's got like 15 horsepower.
I walk around the neighborhood with my weed eater hanging out. That's awesome. See, I haven't done the steel weed eater yet. I've got an Echo that I bought several years ago that's still going strong.
Oh,
so.
Those are nice.
Yeah, so I'll run that until it doesn't run anymore. But yeah, steel definitely has the market in my mind in chainsaws. The Huskies are decent, but they're I've watched a lot of comparison videos and so on, and steel's where it's at. Now, if you love chainsaws, I gotta share this with you because you'll identify with this guy. You might even know him.
Did not see this podcast going in this direction.
You might already know him, right? Because he's a guy that says some of the same things that you say about the importance of loving one another, being kind to one another. Bucking Billy Ray is his YouTube channel, and I've pinged him a couple times. I want to get him as a guest on here, but been in the logging industry for years, and he's got a phenomenal YouTube following, and now he because of the good fortune of YouTube and the message that he's spread and the people that he's drawn to him, he's doing work for people, not charging them a thing. Just a good all around great guy. He's got a phenomenal message that he shares with people, and you would I think you'd appreciate it. Loving chainsaws is now he's an old school guy, so he uses some steel chainsaws. He likes Huskies, but he's a big McCulloch guy. The old monster yellow McCulloch chainsaws.
That's cool.
Check him out.
I wrote his name down. I will.
You didn't see it going that way, right? It's funny how it works, right?
Good.
Now let's talk about guns.
Yeah, that's another one. Will take a while. No, but I wanted to conclude with back to John Wooden, because if you go and look at his body of knowledge that he put out there over the years, because he retired at I think 65, 64 from coaching basketball, lived to 99, and from that age of 64 till he died, he was constantly cranking out just really good information, and there's so much good stuff out there, but it's a balance. His life is about a balance. His pyramid of success, not overemphasizing anything, underemphasizing anything, but just this constant balance of excellence in so many different areas. The systems that you mentioned, Brian, it's all of the systems that he built over time that caused this incredible success. And it's just a great model, and it sounds like a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, Casey, is just putting the systems in place that enable you to go forward in a way, because you've mastered the fundamental elements of what you're doing, and that's a great thing for the audience to listen to.
What's your take on balance while we're talking about it? I'm curious before we get off the phone here.
Well, I mean, I think if you really want to, depends on how you define balance, but if you really want to be good at something, then you have to put in the time to the great sacrifice of other things. You have to make some decisions. So in that respect, there's very little balance, actually. You have to really pour your heart and soul into something to be good at it. But within the realm of that subject matter expertise, there can be balance, but it comes at the cost of a lot of other parts of your life. I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but that's what I came up with. That's what I believe. I don't just come up with it. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hear a lot of people say balance, and I also think that balance is different for different people. You know, to an athlete, for example, or somebody who aspires to be an athlete, the amount of time that they're in the gym is different, you know, or their state of health is different than what's expected for somebody else. And so, you know, balance for them may be 4 hours in the gym, whereas you and I might be 30 minutes 3 times a week.
Right.
You know, so I think just using the word balance haphazardly and putting everybody in that box isn't real fair. You know, a lot of people tell me maybe I work too much or something, but if I worked much less, I wouldn't feel balanced at all.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, definitely. And I think I think it changes somewhat depending on what you do. You know, if you're in a career field and in a job where you have to physically go somewhere and physically do things to get that work done, then, you know, there's got to be some balance there because you have to leave there. In different, you know, maybe in your career field, right? So the mortgage industry, you may well have an always on mindset because, you know, your business is people, and you're always meeting people and developing new relationships and so on. And while you know you might not be, you know, pitching them at 11 o'clock at night in a bar, you're still meeting people and developing relationships that could later translate into business. So it's you know, I don't know if there is an off switch sometimes in careers like that.
Yeah. I think some guys might have to drive truck 12 hours a day. And since they have to do it, sometimes it's more accepted. It's like, you know, my dad drove 12 hours a day. He was a truck driver, and, you know, they see him on weekends or something. Whereas somebody else may work 12 hours a day, but it's by choice. And then that person overworks, or that person doesn't, you know, they're perceived as not having balance. And sometimes I feel that, you know, you get judged by other people based upon maybe their lack of wanting to do something greater. And, you know, you don't want that perception bleeding down into your family's mentality, because you don't want your family thinking that they're less important, you know. But I think achieving things is worth some sacrifice. I think some pain is healthy. I think striving for things is healthy.
100%. I want the metaphor I want to use to tell the story to sort of kick this, you know, horse one more time. I like to play golf. I'm not great at it. I'm okay at it, but I like to do it.
Yeah, you're pretty damn good at it. You're being very humble right now.
With that sweater, he looks like he's good at it.
But if you want to be a good golfer, there has to be balance in what you practice. You can't just, a lot of people go to the driving range and they'll hit their driver constantly, you know, drive for show, putt for dough. They get on the putting green, they can't putt worth a shit. And so they don't score well because their game is not balanced. They can drive, but they can't. Their long irons are crap, their short irons are crap, they're no good on the green. They can't putt. And so balance is learning all of the aspects of that game.
That's a tournament player, man. You need that guy on your team for the you know, the best ball, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But true story, and back to golf for a second. When Tiger Woods was in college, went to Stanford for a couple years before he turned pro. His college coach said when he was interviewed about, you know, what's Tiger like, you know, and he said at that point in his life before you know he had some problems, he practiced golf I mean, this is Division I college, high level golf. He practiced golf more than all the rest of his teammates combined. I mean, think of that. And people think he was just this phenom that came out of nowhere with the most incredible athletic talent that ever existed. Not true. That guy worked his ass off for years. That's how he became a phenomenal golfer. Now, he was blessed with some physical abilities, but even his strength, that came through hard workouts. I mean, he was phenomenal. So there you go.
I think the blessing comes from the desire to work hard. Yeah. My daughter has it. My daughter is an exceptional artist. Got accepted at all the top schools in the United States, and she's phenomenal. But she works at it every single day for hours and hours and hours. And when she's waiting for me, she's drawing something. If we go to a different town and I'm on the phone for work, she draws somebody. Your story is not much different than Kobe Bryant. It's not much different than Michael Jordan. It's all these guys that stayed out an extra hour in the morning and at night and made their practices an extra hour long than everybody else. I think the gifts that they were born with is liking the work.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and I gotta mention this. I gotta circle back to one conversation that we had before we started actually recording. You mentioned something about making your bed every day, and the discipline associated with that. And that's one of those things that you'd heard people say in times past, and it doesn't really, may not resonate with you at the time. But I think it's all about, the systems and developing the discipline to create that order in your life and hold yourself accountable for that discipline each day. And I'm fortunate, like you said, I don't make my bed every day because my wife does it. And when she's out of town, I make the bed because I like the order of the way it looks.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset for me. So, just because she's not here and the person that does it every day, the bed still gets made because I like the way it looks. I like that order.
There you go.
And I think you can translate that over into a lot of different aspects of your life. So.
For sure. Absolutely.
I got to ask you this though, man. I'm looking at the background behind you. Is that, is there a truck back there? Are you in a shop or something, or where are you at?
No, this is my office.
Okay. Cause it almost, now see the lights on it now. I can see it, but it almost looked like there was a truck back there. Yeah, there was something else that I was keying in on.
Yeah. Just some reloading stuff. My dad died about a year and a half ago, so I got some of his saddles here from the ranch I grew up on, and just some little knickknacks and stuff that I like having around me. So I spend a lot of time here, and I like being surrounded by things I like. So a lot of leather, a lot of iron and guns, reloading stuff, pics of my family. So you got to be somewhere, might as well spruce it up a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So you asked me about steel chainsaws. I got to get this one in there. Are you a steel pistol or a plastic pistol guy?
Well, that's really interesting because I bought it's a 1873 revolver, like it's a cattleman's style 1873 single action pistol. And so I got all the plastic stuff, but I started spinning this gun when I'm at work. Now, when I sit here, I got my holster right here, my dad made. And so now in between, I don't have it right here this second. I don't know why. Normally I do, but now in between work stuff, I spin this gun and I've been working on that left hand and right hand thing. And I'm a big fan. So I hope I go out in this single shot, like revolver pistol shootout is what I'm hoping for. Cause I want one of those old guns. And I think that'd be a great way to go out.
That's cool. I like cowboy guns too. Yep.
Yeah. So next time we talk, hopefully I'll be able to do two the same time, and the whole sideways stuff and all that. But it definitely takes some work. Takes practice.
Very cool. This went in a bunch of different directions you didn't see, right?
It's been a highly enjoyable conversation. And the thing is, it hasn't been so explicitly stated, but there's all kind of wisdom layered all throughout this conversation, and it's great. I very much enjoyed this, Casey. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it greatly.
Hey, I appreciate you guys too, and I know you don't hear very much, but love you, and I'm really happy to be on your show. And looking forward to your continued success. So thank you for having me very much.
You are certainly welcome, man. We close this out, and we appreciate you being here, man. Appreciate you taking the time, and love you for giving that time to us, man. Because I'm sure you got other things you could be doing. So that's very, very much appreciated.
We are going to have you back. Yes, that's a fact.
Yeah, no doubt. We're going to be talking guns and chainsaws again. I have no doubt.
Nice.
All right.
Well,
so I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just gonna say, if you book me back on, I want you to try some welding first, so we can talk about that if we get back on.
Okay.
It's got to be a deal.
All right, I can do that. I can. I got some friends that weld, and I've never actually had the conversation with them about, teaching me. But I think there's other ways to learn too. So I appreciate some of the suggestions there.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to reach over here and push this button, Kevin. Then I'm going to say something like this. No matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, make sure between this podcast and the next, you take time to enjoy the ride. Thank you again, Casey.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Great Beard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.